The Homeland Security Department is busy these days on a lot of fronts. Among the jobs not so visible, developing the next generation of passenger screening technologies, especially as passenger traffic keeps growing. Here with a report on some developments that promise to make screening both faster and more accurate, from the DHS Science and Technology Directorate, John Fortune. Dr. Fortune, I think it's been a while, but good to have you back.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks for having me back on the show.
And the program, I guess, has a name, Screening at Speed. And the idea is this goal of just people being able to walk by something unobtrusive and be screened without the stopping, starting, wanding, et cetera, et cetera. And you've developed some lab technology that looks promising. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so Screening at Speed is looking at really developing the next generation of technologies for the Transportation Security Administration, for TSA. And also trying to reimagine the future a bit, about what the art of the possible is in screening aviation security for passengers as we think further down the road, 10 or 15 years down the road. So we have a number of technologies in development, and the one you referred to is an area where we're investing in future screening for passengers to be able to make more accurate decisions and faster decisions, which will ultimately improve the experience for the passenger.
And the technology is millimeter wave. What is that and how does it work?
We use millimeter technology to collect images of passengers to ensure that no threats that are not allowed on the plane are being brought through the security checkpoint. And it's the technology that's already used in checkpoints today, in standard TSA checkpoints. And with the millimeter wave, an image is created. Nobody looks at the image. It's automatically analyzed by a computer algorithm that then determines if there are any threat items on the passenger that require any additional attention, or if the passenger can continue on through the screening process. So using millimeter wave itself is not new. But we've come up with some new ways to build the technology using different wavelengths of millimeter wave and different antenna configurations, and really using some technology advances to come up with a better system that basically creates much sharper images. So now, when the image is presented to a computer algorithm to determine whether there's a threat or not, there's a lot better chance of getting it right the first time. And especially what we want to do is avoid something called false alarms. A false alarm is just when a threat is detected, but there's really no threat there. And that leads to secondary screening and often a pat down of the passenger, which nobody wants. So by having that sharper image through this advanced millimeter wave technology, we can hopefully have a lot better screening efficiency and also avoid those pat downs that people hate when they're going through the checkpoint.
In other words, it can change from just simply seeing a blob somewhere on that person to being able to say, oh, that's a cigarette pack and not two pistol magazines side by side.
Yeah, so I want to be a little careful here. The technology is not designed to distinguish one item from another item. We're not quite there yet, but it's to provide a lot sharper image to determine, is this actually an item somebody's carrying, or perhaps they just have a thick pocket, that is part of their pants or their clothing that actually is not an item at all. So, in the current system, sometimes there are anomalies that show up that actually aren't anything, and they result in secondary screening of the passenger. And if we get that sharper image, then we can say, yes, there is at least an item there, because they're not supposed to have anything on their person as they go through this millimeter wave system. So there's an item there or there's not. And it's really that simple. And this what we call high definition advanced imaging technology, or this new millimeter wave approach, is going to help us make better decisions and avoid those pesky pat downs, or not avoid them, but reduce them.
Sure. We're speaking with Dr. John Fortune. He's the program manager for Screening at Speed in the Homeland Security Science and Technology Directorate. And a moment ago, you mentioned nobody looks at the image. It's some kind of an algorithm that decides whether it's something to be looked at or not. Wouldn't it be perhaps faster and more accurate if someone saw the image, because it doesn't create an anatomy picture of the person, correct? I mean, what's the issue? Is it a privacy issue?
Okay, so the image that is presented to an operator is just an avatar. So they are able to see a generalized avatar that shows, where an item might be located on a passenger, correct. But but no images that are show any kind of features are revealed to the operator. It's been that way for many years.
So therefore, the idea of using an algorithm to evaluate the image is for speed, not for rather than having people look at each image that goes by, which is slower.
It's for speed, it's for accuracy, and it's for privacy. It's really for all three of those.
It seems like a lot of work has to happen on the algorithm because the chance of so many things appearing alike, even to a high-definition imaging system, seem pretty large.
Yeah, and you're definitely right there. A lot of our work going forward is going to be on algorithm development, because one of the interesting things about this high definition millimeter wave technology we've developed is we're not just looking at utilizing technology to improve the current screening portals that we see in airports, but we're looking at other ways that technology can be used to improve the screening process. So one of the ways that we're looking at implementing the technology, working with our partners at TSA, is, as I just said, basically a replacement or a retrofit of the existing passenger screening systems. But the technology also holds a lot of promise for shoe scanning, and we've built a shoe scanner that uses that same technology, so people would potentially not have to remove their shoes as they go through the checkpoint. And then we're also looking at an even further down the road system, what we've actually already built a laboratory prototype of, that looks at real-time imaging, where somebody can walk through a portal and not have to stop at all. It all uses the same bones, per se. It's the same advanced millimeter wave screening technology. It's just in one case used in a stationary portal, which is what we have today. In one case, it's we're looking at using it as a shoe scanner, and then a third case, we're looking at it using it as a real-time screening system.
It sounds like the big challenge then is the physical deployment in the airport setting, such that these things can be made at scale and fit into the space that is there already at the airport.
That definitely is a challenge, and something we're working closely with our partners at TSA on. How do you implement a shoe scanner? Do you put it in with an existing portal system where the person's already standing there and being screened, and their shoes are just scanned at the same time? Could it be placed somewhere else within the checkpoint where it might increase efficiencies? And of course, anything real-time screening does involve kind of reimagining what the checkpoint is, and that's why I mentioned a screening at speed is looking at that future vision for what the checkpoint might look like. But back to something you said earlier, on the research and development side, there is still a lot of work to be done on the algorithms, because we're still working very diligently to develop the algorithms, not only for the portal, but for the shoe scanning and for the walk through. And it takes kind of a different approach it's not a one size fits all algorithm. You have to develop algorithms that are specific to those different types of systems. And there's still a lot of work to be done on the research and development and testing side before, in particular, the shoe scanner and the real-time walk-by system are ready for deployment in the airport. We're a little further along with the portal system, because that's what we have right now.
And the processing of the imagery, of the millimeter wave imagery, and of the algorithm execution, that can all be done with standard type of hardware? In other words, you don't need to build data centers at the airport to process this stuff.
No, not at all. I mean, again, that's part of our research and development, is to figure out, what kind of computational, power is needed to process the images. And it's always the same with that type of thing. More is better. But no, we're not talking about building, data farms at the airport. I mean, these are things that, these are systems that are designed to work with fairly standard processing units on the computers that can be acquired commercially.
And just briefly, how does this get translated to the manufacturer of equipment? That would be, I guess, maybe TSA's issue themselves. Yeah. They would put it out for bid, and whatever company can come up with the greatest panels in the least amount of time for lowest cost would get that contract.
Yeah, that's a great question. And one of the things that's important to point out is because the systems that we've built are basically, they were originally, concepts, and then were built into laboratory prototypes. One of our major research partners that we've been funding at DHS Science and Technology to build these systems is a Department of Energy lab, Pacific Northwest National Laboratory out in Washington State, and or PNNL. And PNNL has built a number of prototypes